screen starts glowing and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the easy good score.
Hi everyone, good morning. Welcome to episode 212 of our podcast. It's The Goods, a film podcast with Brian, who is me, and Dan.
Who is me, I guess.
And we're here to talk about a movie. That's what we do. It might not be a lot, but it's what we do. If we do a little, we've done enough, right?
Do little?
Yeah. Because the movie that we're here to talk about is Doctor Dolittle from 1967. And then, because we go above and beyond, I think we both watched at least a couple other adaptations of the Hugh Lofting stories into motion picture form. Is that correct, Dan?
Yep.
So, the 1967 movie was the one I was really familiar with, but as such, I had kind of avoided subsequent adaptations. But as millennials will probably remember, there was a version with Eddie Murphy that came out in 1998. Had, 4 sequels, it turns out?
Yep. 1 theatrical and 3 direct-to-DVD sequels. I think all of the direct-to-DVD sequels are now on Disney+. And I did subject myself to all of the Eddie Murphy sequels.
You watched all of them?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, well, I shouldn't be surprised. At this point, I'm not surprised anymore. I did not watch those, but you can catch me up.
Sure.
I did watch the original Eddie Murphy outing, and I also watched from 2020, just before the pandemic, a version starring Robert Downey Jr. post-Marvel. I guess they've roped him back in again for whatever's coming next, but when he was in that nebulous time when he said he wasn't going to do Marvel anymore, he starred as Doctor Dolittle in a movie called Dolittle that I was going to go see on my birthday. Unlike those other January movies we talked about recently, this one actually came out like Martin Luther King weekend, January 17th. Did not do well. The reviews were abysmal, and so I steered clear at the time. But I knew eventually I'd probably watch it.
Yeah, I hadn't seen any of these movies prior to this week, so it was a little bit of a Dolittle binge for me.
I kept thinking of Ben Kingsley in Schindler's List says, "You've done so much."
I was thinking of, I even mentioned this to my wife, Paul Rudd in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Don't do anything. Don't try. Don't do it. The less you do, the more you do. So it's like do little, do less. The less you do, the more you do.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was playing in my head, but also Liam Neeson. I could have done more. You've done so much. So yeah, I was very familiar with the 67. The rest were new to me. But Dan, I understand that you are fond of a film history book that kind of explored the production of this film and how it fared in the box office and the awards season.
Right. So it's a book called Pictures at a Revolution, and it basically traces all 5 Best Picture nominees from the 1968 Academy Awards, covering movies released in 1967. And so the 5 movies that were nominated for Best Picture were Doctor Dolittle, also The Graduate, also Bonnie and Clyde, also the one that ended up winning it, They Call Me Mr. Tibbs. What's the name of the...
Is that In the Heat of the Night?
Yes, In the Heat of the Night. And then the last one is Look Who's Coming to Dinner, which had an elderly Katharine Hepburn and Spencer Tracy as parents of a daughter who is dating a black man. And it was Spencer Tracy's last role, and he won an Academy Award for it. And that book is really, really good. It kind of does a great job of capturing, first of all, like what was the old studio system? And second of all, like what was New Hollywood and how were things changing, both in the pictures themselves, but also in how they were made, how people were talking about them, who was talking about them. And it's very readable too. It's well written. It's Pictures at a Revolution. And it's by Mark Harris, who is kind of like a pop culture writer who he sometimes does like articles and features in news, in like websites and magazines and stuff. But he's also written a few books. And I think he almost exclusively writes about film. He's got I think he has a bio he wrote of Mike Nichols, and he has a handful of other film books that he's related. But it's like non-academic. It's like reader-friendly film history. So I'm not an academic, so it hit the spot for me.
Gotcha. But yeah, this really was like a pivotal moment in film history. A lot of things were changing. New Hollywood was being born. And I think the reputation of this movie, 1967's Doctor Dolittle, one, it isn't good. That's the reputation. Not a good movie, a lot of people say. I would say it's one of the films that my personal opinion of it is like most furthest divorced from the opinion of the cinephile community at large. Because I'm gonna put on the table that I like this movie.
All right.
Yeah. So just showing that card at the start.
Yeah. So some of the things it talks about. So basically, this came just a couple years after the film My Fair Lady, which was just like a smash. People loved it, made a lot of money.
I think it got Best Picture, didn't it?
I think it did win Best Picture, yeah.
Yeah, it was a time, as we kind of talked about with Fiddler on the Roof a few months back, a time that musicals were winning Best Picture. Like in the 60s, 4 of the winners or something. It's Oliver, it's My Fair Lady, a few different ones.
Right.
So they were kind of riding high, these road show, 3-hour-long musical movies.
And yeah, road show is the word I was going to go for. It's like a long runtime, big budget, and kind of like an old-fashioned presentation, a studio-style presentation, where it's kind of a product of the entertainment machine. The big contrasts in Pictures at a Revolution are Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate. Bonnie and Clyde, directed by Arthur Penn. The Graduate, coming from Mike Nichols. And they are both young voices kind of kicking off this idea that would come to be known as New Hollywood, where this wave of young filmmakers, a lot of them getting inspiration from European cinema, a lot of them having gone to film school, a lot of them having kind of witnessed or being a part of like just the general counterculture that was kind of going on in the late 60s, and really changing the way that movies were made. I mean, I think some directors who were part of New Hollywood, Martin Scorsese, to some extent, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, are still making movies, you know? We're how many years in the future? Literally 60 years almost in the future. It's 58 years since Doctor Dolittle came out. And a lot of things have changed, but we're still feeling the reverberations of the changes that were coming about, like right at the late 60s to the movie industry. Also, the business model was changing. Hollywood was still, I can't remember exactly what year, there was the antitrust suits that basically dismantled the studio system, which basically stipulated that no longer could movie producers, studios own the theaters at which the movies were played. So during the studio system era, that was like the big, it was a single pipeline. So like the movie studios themselves owned the theaters and had total control over what got played. And that was eventually deemed a monopoly. So now movie theaters, AMC, Cinemark, etc., are not owned by like Warner Brothers or whatever. So they get to decide what they air, how many theaters they put it in. And so that kind of changed the nature a little bit of the business. But you mentioned its reputation as being bad. I mean, I think prior to kind of the Weinstein era, 1990s, when some studios got really good at like manipulating the Academy, I think Doctor Dolittle was viewed prior to that as like the peak of manipulation of the Oscars, because Doctor Dolittle got panned critically. It lost a lot of money, so it was just like a bad story for Hollywood. Like, no, it's not like it lost money, but people thought it was great. And it's not like everyone went to go see it, so people made a lot of money. So Hollywood liked it, even though the critics kind of shrugged at it. It was like, no, nobody really liked Dr. Dolittle. It was a catastrophe. It had bad press. And still, Fox managed to get 9 Academy Award nominations. That's like Oppenheimer level, Brian. That's like most of the year level number of nominations.
Yep. That was going to be the second thing about its reputation. And so I'm glad you got to it, is that, yes, they pulled strings. That's the other thing people know about this movie. And it was nominated for the Best Picture, up alongside The Graduate and Bonnie and Clyde. The only caveat I was going to give that was just to loop back around and say that big musicals of the 60s had been in the running for Best Picture before. Those were the connection between my two ideas. Is not entirely insane. 9, though, is insane. That's too many. It did win for Best Song for Talk to the Animals, which I think is like the most lasting legacy of the film. That song, I think people know that song.
I know it as a standard, so we can talk about it. I expected it to be like sung, but it gets Rex Harrison sung, which is to say not sung in this film.
So the lead of this film can't sing, doesn't sing, really. He does what's called recitative, where it's talking rhythmically while music is playing. But, like you said, My Fair Lady, he was the lead of that, and that got Best Picture. So, like, he was a hot commodity, and as such, the studio put up with a lot of bad behavior from Rex Harrison. He sounds really miserable and detestable as a person, like an actor that you have to deal with. Just really bad.
So, a couple of points there from the book. First of all, I read the book now like 3 years ago, and so it's a little fuzzy. Actually, probably more than 3 years ago. So I don't recall every single detail that came up in it. And I was actually more fascinated, less dumping on Dr. Dolittle and more about like learning how New Hollywood was emerging. I found that a little bit more interesting overall, just because I don't get a lot of schadenfreude out of things going wrongly. But there were some pretty interesting anecdotes in there. So yes, Rex Harrison, he was kind of cast on like inertia almost. And like the same thing again with like Best Picture. The nomination was like, yeah, muscle memory, like we nominate, this is like, if you were to zoom out, like what kind of pictures get nominated for Best Picture? Well, it's things like Dr. Dolittle. So like, I think that was part of the reasoning, in addition to like Fox basically calling up their buddies in the Academy and saying, hey, got to nominate this. But yeah, he was a jerk. In particular, the co-star, what's his name again? It's
Anthony Newley. So, yes, so this musical comes from the team up of Leslie Bricusse and Anthony Newley, who we talked about before when we covered Scrooge 1970. So this was like their first big feature that they scored. And then later was Scrooge. And then after that was the best known Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory in 1971. That's the one that kind of everybody still knows.
Mm-hmm.
So Newley, it was like best buds with Bricusse, and Bricusse had a lot of influence over the movie. And what I read was that originally, like, the project had been kind of the brainchild of somebody named Werner. Somebody Werner, like, wrote it and was pushing for it and then got fired. And, like, Harrison was brought aboard when that guy was still running things. And so Harrison had some kind of rider in his contract that was like, if the leadership changes, if Werner's not in it anymore, I could walk if I want to. And so he was like flexing that and holding it over the new people's heads. And Bercussi is best buds with this guy Newley, who's like his writing partner, his music partner. And he's like, oh, we should like give Newley a big part in the movie. Arguably like a weird dual protagonist that most movies don't have. And Harrison really, really resented that.
Yeah, so Bercussi, so all that's right. Like I don't remember like multiple people started working on drafts and then got fired. And yeah, so it landed on Bercussi. He wrote both the script and the music. And he had a lot of say then in how the movie was formed. And Rex Harrison, wasn't wild about him and didn't just like kind of push back against it, but he was like actively antagonistic to Newley. Apparently, I think Newley is Jewish, and Rex Harrison was like really anti-Semitic to him and like really condescending to. So there's a young woman co-star, and there's a couple of kids. There's a kid character, and apparently was like a jerk to all of them. Not like a warm like elder statesman or mentor, but like superiority complex in everything he did. And like had his own posse or girlfriend and like was basically trying to like determine what the shooting schedule was himself so that he could party in certain ways and different things like that. And there's just all sorts of anecdotes about it. Oh, at one point, so apparently everything that was shot on the island and in the water, we'll talk about, like, was just nightmarish. And the people on the island where they shot it, like, fought back. In some cases, like, physically fought back, like, destroying sets and stuff. People got sick. And at one point, Rex Harrison quit. So do you know this one? Rex Harrison quit?
Yeah, so I read about this too, and yeah, he used that writer. He said he's going away, and so they brought in Christopher Plummer from The Sound of Music to play Doctor Dolittle, and like he had signed a new contract with them. And then Rex Harrison came back. He's like, no, take me. It's okay. I'll be in it. But the thing that Plummer had signed said that even if he didn't do the movie, he would get paid like he did. So then they had to pay 2 lead actors' salaries. And yeah, the movie is kind of bifurcated. Like one half they're at sea and on an island, and then the other half they're in this little village in England. And however they scheduled the shoot, it was like they had all these animals in one of those areas. Either they did England first and then like the overseas second, or vice versa. But however they did it, they couldn't bring the animals that they had before into the place they had to go next. So they had to buy a whole second set of animals due to customs restrictions.
Right. Yeah. And I think they sort of had a sense that this was losing steam. But think about it, like they're like, okay, if we can just get this out, like we can recoup the losses, So you kind of need to keep pushing if you're a corporation. And so, if you're a studio, you just want to like, okay, well, we got to dump another $1 million into it to buy new animals. God damn it. Oh, we got to dump another $1 million to pay a star who's not even going to appear in the film. Oh, we got to pay another $1 million because the shoot got extended because everybody got sick. And just like thing after thing. And then it just flopped,
Yeah. So then they're like, well, we got to make some money back. So what do? Well, maybe it'll make more money if it wins some awards. So it's like, give everybody gift baskets, be shaking hands and kissing babies. Also, let's merchandise it. Let's sell movie merchandise, which wasn't really a thing pre-Star Wars. And arguably, because of all the money they poured into the merchandising and Fox ultimately took a bath on, could have played a role in them allowing George Lucas to basically control his own merchandising 10 years later.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, in some ways, you can... There's a case to be made that, like, this inadvertently kicked off the summer blockbuster, because from that wealth that George Lucas made, getting the merchandising rights. Now everybody was looking at Star Wars and being like, oh, we need to make our own Star Wars. And so they started making new stuff that we now recognize as the summer blockbuster. And yeah, if you only got that, I think that does get mentioned towards the end of Pictures Out of Revolution, that might have been a factor. So we can draw a line from Doctor Dolittle to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then back to Dolittle, I guess.
Yeah, I think we can. I had read that about him giving Newley a hard time because of anti-Semitism. This movie is also... It's got some complexities about race. It's based on these novellas from the early 20s, which were much more decidedly racist.
Yes.
Like no gray area, just out and out, like, searingly racist. And so by the late 60s, they knew, okay, we got to tamp this down a little bit. We got to do something with this property that's not as offensive. Because, I mean, the whole story is kind of like, at least parts of it, this Doctor Dolittle series that was written by Hugh Lofting, trafficked a lot in, like, Rudyard Kipling's white man's burden thing. It's like, travel to the far corners of the earth and bring civilization with you, bring, like, empathy and academia and various things.
Right, like, on the assumption that, like, Western civilization, European civilization specifically, I guess, is like more advanced and civilized and intellectual than these other ones. Exactly.
Right. So there's this character, this like African tribal leader character who's in the books named Prince Bumpo. And he was going to be in the movie. He was going to be played by Sammy Davis Jr. But I guess Rex Harrison didn't like the idea of casting a singer. He's like, he should be an actor. We should get somebody like Sidney Poitier or something. At least that's this, you know, I'm sorting through various blurbs. I don't know what the book said he said, but something like that. We should get an actor, not a song and dance man. And then the counter argument to that is this is a musical, dude.
Yeah, I know. Well, that was part, yeah, because like Rex Harrison is like, he's like, oh, this is my masterpiece that I'm in charge of, too. So he's like, we need real talent, not just of course, there's condescension in that. Like, Sammy Davis Jr., ridiculously talented and charming person. Like, oh, he's not good enough for your dang musical? For singing? Yeah. And then, of course, it's tied to In the Heat of the Night, because that's where Sidney Poitier was cast.
What I find really interesting is, as part of the merchandising, there are so many Doctor Dolittle soundtrack albums. Sammy Davis Jr. released one. There's one from, like, Bobby Darin. I think Anthony Newley had his own album. The Chipmunks did a cover of the Doctor Dolittle soundtrack. So you best believe I'm going to be dropping the Chipmunks See Doctor Dolittle in our supplemental media Discord thread.
I did not listen to any of the bonus soundtracks.
That's okay. You went above and beyond watching those Eddie Murphy sequels.
Of which Eddie Murphy is only in number 1 and number 2 of 5.
We gotta talk someday with Buzzed on Movies again. That makes me think of Robert.
That's
that
right.
was the very first episode where we had to suddenly contend with interminable sequels, and we were kind of left in the lurch because we didn't watch them, and Teddy and Matt both had.
That was my origin story. Just kidding.
So this movie takes the most from the first, second, and fourth Hugh Lofting stories, which were The Story of Dr. Dolittle, The Voyages of Dr. Dolittle, and Dr. Dolittle's Circus. So there's a circus in this movie.
You had me guess, Brian. You pinged me offline saying, what do you think your favorite part of this movie is? And I watched like an hour after you pinged me that, and it got to the circus. I was like, just lock it in. It's the circus. That's Brian's favorite part.
You're right. So I got this movie for Christmas when I was like 7 or 8, and I've just watched it a bunch of times. Even though it's like 3 hours long, this is one that I pretty much know back and forth. And yeah, I don't know if there's a good excuse for that. It's colorful. It's got music, a lot of animals. I like some of the effects. We'll come back to these things when we come around to rate. But I think the reason that the story continues to resonate is that just the idea of being able to talk to animals is really cool. Like, I think people feel like they're missing out not being able to do that.
Right. It's an appealing fantasy. And I would say it is a fantasy. Like, our understanding of animal language is not as it is represented here. Like, animals can communicate some things, but they kind of more communicate sentiments than rich language with each other. It's like, oh, I'm upset. Oh, I'm hurt. Like, that's the extent of the kinds of thing they can say. Oh, I'm hungry. Oh, I'm excited. Oh, I want to reproduce.
Me eat orange. Orange now. Give me orange, says Noam Chomsky.
We used to joke that my pet dog, when I was growing up, his name is Ruff, that if we had a translator for him, all of his thoughts, all of his communication would be, I want hot dogs. Can we eat hot dogs? Give me hot dogs.
Yeah, there's like a Far Side cartoon from Gary Larson where it's dogs barking and just the talk bubbles say, hey, hey, hey. And so, yeah, I think this episode will provide some good fodder for Dan and I to talk about the possible interiority of animals. It's something we talked a little bit about back when we covered, what was it, Bears? The Bears documentary, because Timothy Treadwell was looking for the secret world of the bears, and he wound up inside one.
Yeah.
And, Werner Herzog said something about that there was no interiority there. You look into a bear's eyes and nothing looks back.
Right, no secret reasoning or understanding. We quoted the full monologue, I think, in the Bears episode, if you go back and listen to that one.
So I want to do a kind of a recap of this one and not get as into the weeds on the others, but I do want to kind of knock through them. But this is the one that I've seen so many times, I have like thoughts as I go through it. So I do want to drag you along with me, Dan. And
it will be a drag. So no, I'm just kidding.
It's okay. That's why we take turns with this thing. It's like we pick, and then the other person picks, and we have some quid pro quo. And I also wanted to discuss if we saw any connections between this trilogy of movies from Bercussi and Newley of Doctor Dolittle, Scrooge 1970, and Willy Wonka 1971. Because I see some things. I don't know if they're intentional, but I see some connective tissue. So these Dolittle stories, Dr. John Dolittle lives in a village in England called Puddleby in the 1840s. So very much like Christmas Carol times. Victorian, early Victorian. And the story is kind of told or introduced by this character played by Anthony Newley, whose name is Matthew. And so he's kind of like the Nick Carraway to Dr. Dolittle's Gatsby. He's like this more normal guy who's gonna be our like avatar introduction to this eccentric.
The one that I was thinking, Brian, is that it's like Doctor Who and the companions to Doctor Who. He's like the companion. He's the normal human who doesn't have special abilities, but he's like the human cipher and introduction to it, with a little bit more like reacting the way that a human would react, so that we kind of like understand how a person would be feeling in this situation.
Really good call. The first song in the movie is Matthew singing My Friend the Doctor, and I'm 90% sure I've seen like a fan edit on YouTube of Doctor Who footage using that song.
There you go.
And so Matthew ropes in this kid to come along with him and visit Dr. Dolittle. And I guess this kid is more important in the books because he ends up like being the second Dr. Dolittle, Dr. Dolittle's apprentice, his like Padawan learner. And there's only a little tiny bit of that in this film. There's a lot more in the Robert Downey Jr. movie.
Right. He's the new Time Lord.
And so, Matthew, I'm going to get into my thoughts on Matthew. Like Dan kind of said, I always viewed him as the more normal one, the like more sympathetic one. But watching it this time, I realized his job is he sells horse meat for cats to eat. He walks a little cart around the town and sells this like scrap meat, and he's a drunk. He's always drinking, and he sells secondhand meat scraps. So maybe not the best career path. It had me a little bit like Dan talking about Goofy's job at the photo booth at the mall.
Really questioning that one.
Yeah.
Is that actually a career that one can build a life around? Local drunk who sells cat meat scraps.
What are Matthew Mugg's prospects?
Yeah. That's an interesting point. What his defining trait is he always has a sardonic quip. A bit of wordplay to go with whatever's going along.
Yeah, he's the Chandler. He always gets the last line. And some of them, it made me laugh. I don't know. He's got some barbs.
I agree.
We get like a flashback once we meet Dr. Dolittle where we learn what his deal is. And this seemed pretty consistent, at least across this one in the 1990... Well, never mind. Put a pin in that. But the idea that he doesn't start as a veterinarian seems to crop up in several of these. That he starts as a human doctor and then like becomes a misanthrope. Like he starts to hate people and being a person, and he loves animals way more.
It's very bizarre though, because I think you're about to get here, but well, I'll let you complete this thought, because that part made sense to me, but the next part didn't make sense to me.
Okay. So, you're on board with hating humans. You're on board with becoming a misanthrope.
Well, I at least get the character. Like, okay, he likes almost solving problems, like procedurally. He's like Dr. House on the TV show. You know, he's got a compulsion to solve them, and I really saw that more in the 2020 one. I was thinking about that a little bit, maybe just because Robert Downey Jr. also played Sherlock Holmes, but like. He likes to solve these problems, but the idea that like he wouldn't want to put up with the people, that he would be more drawn to the animals. Like that kind of makes sense to me. I even know, without putting anyone on putting anyone on blast, I know people whose professions are dealing with animals in part because they like caring, but they don't like the actual interaction with people, if that makes sense. Like they like being a kind presence, but don't like the actual social aspect of it. So I at least get the idea.
Sure. And I mean, I think it's handled interestingly here. I find this character compelling. But what saves him from just being like a crazy cat lady is suddenly his parrot starts talking to him in comprehensible English. And opens the door to learning the languages of the animals. The parrot knows all the animal languages and is going to be Dr. Dolittle's mentor. And, I mean, this is quite a stroke of luck. I guess the parrot was just waiting for the right moment to raise this as an idea.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's not how parrots talking work, by the way. Like, they just kind of repeat noises that they hear. So they're not ever in real life, they're not talking. But sure, like, that's a thing. Parrots talk. You know, that's how they're depicted in media, in stories. So, like, the idea that, oh, what if a parrot could communicate things to you about the animal world? And here, the idea is this parrot is so smart and sophisticated that as soon as he starts talking to the Dr. Dolittle is gonna learn how to communicate with all the animals, because the parrot will be the conduit between the animal world and the human world. But yeah, it is kind of lucky that he just started to have that conversation at the exact time that the doctor needed an out.
Right. And so what we learn is all the animals have their own individual languages, although it seems like there are many cognates. It's like language groups. So there's a lot of overlap. Like you could say pretty much the same thing to a horse as you could to a pig and they'll understand. And probably part of that is that they could train a pig and a horse to react in a similar way.
Right. It's like, oh, if you lift your leg, that means good morning. And that happens to be a trick that real life animal trainers can get animals to do.
Right. But we do have, like, pretty much, for the most part, real animals. Lots of real animals in this film of different kinds and sizes.
And I like that. That's like we've talked about this. You're going to have animals, have them be real animals. That gets me on board.
Yeah. One of the, like, quick barbs in the movie that always makes me laugh and that I think of in context outside this movie is the parrot says that she's going to teach Dr. Dolittle the animal languages, and he says, "Oh, perfect. We'll start at 8 a.m. And she says, "But it took me 100 years. He says, "We'll start at 7. So when I'm scheduling, sometimes I think about that. And so that leads into talk to the animals. He's walking around, half talking, half singing, talk to the animals, as he's conversing with, like, the creatures on the moor. And it's a lot of farm animals, ducks and sheep and things. And then it jumps back to the present. And he's firmly established himself as this kind of crackpot animal doctor who definitely interacts more with animals than humans. And he says that, like, what he is paid on is whatever the animals happen to have. So he basically has no money, but it's like he has food, except he doesn't eat animals. That's another thing, is he's got a song about how he is a vegetarian, even though he might have, like, omnivore impulses. He respects the animals enough that he doesn't eat them. And so he's like, he is a vegetarian, which is more radical in 1840 than it is now.
Right.
And so what did you think of this number? Or just this idea that he's a vegetarian? Because you're a vegetarian.
I am. So we should say that is I'm a vegetarian. And it felt, I don't know, like, it felt like it was written by not a vegetarian, is what I will say. Which is to say, like, someone who kind of understood the concept of vegetarianism, but was like, oh, but I love my bacon so much. How could I ever? It's so hard to be vegetarian. And I mean, I guess that's the way, like, particularly in the 60s, nobody was a vegetarian, right? You'd be like a radical to be a vegetarian. Whereas now, I would say 3/4 of restaurants I go to have markings on things that are vegetarian or separate vegetarian menus, you know? So, like, it's definitely much more accepted than it used to be for, I think, a whole bunch of different reasons. And I think there are a lot of reasons to go vegetarian. The type that gets depicted here is, like, ethical vegetarianism, which is that, like, you think you shouldn't eat animals because you think they deserve dignity and respect to not be slaughtered for their flesh. And there's other reasons you might go vegetarian are like your religious beliefs or health reasons. And there could be other ones too, combinations of those. And when, like, they immediately introduce the idea of vegetarianism, but then it would go to say, but you can't have delicious sizzling sausage, that just made my eyes roll a little bit, because that's like all, when you talk about vegetarianism to people who are not vegetarian, that's like the number one response is, but I like eating bacon so much. And it's like, okay. But I will say now it's a lot easier to be a vegetarian, not just the number of restaurant, like the fact that places offer it, but like they have vegetarian substitutes for foods all the time. So nowadays, hey, you like sizzling bacon, go buy meatless sizzling bacon. It's maybe 80% as good as regular sizzling bacon. And you can still not have to kill animals to do it. I mean, as for me personally, it's a little bit odd for me in the 1840s, because 1840s, there was obviously agriculture, but it wasn't industrial agriculture. And I find industrial agriculture to be like a combination of unethical and gross and horrifying. And I don't know if I would in a vacuum go vegetarian after learning about those things. I only did after my wife did. And I only went vegetarian a couple of years after she did during COVID, because if she was going to be eating vegetarian in the house, I was like, well, I've been thinking about biting the bullet anyways. Now I'm just going to be eating all of my meals with you. So now may as well be the time to do it. And I've just stuck with it ever since. So like, I understand any reasons I have for it are going to be rationalizing, and also from a place of privilege, because I have someone literally making me vegetarian meals every day. So I don't mean to cast like aspersions onto anyone who hasn't come to the place where they think they shouldn't be eating dead animals. That is kind of how I feel. Like but I think there's a little more nuance to it than you would typically hear from either side, in my opinion. There's shades where you typically won't hear shades from people who are adamantly pro-vegetarian or adamantly non-vegetarian.
Yeah. I'm pretty adamantly non-vegetarian. I like shrimp because you can eat as many animals as possible. But this is the movie that makes me think about it the most. The ethical implications of, is it proper? Is it correct to eat an animal?
Why is this the thing that makes you think about it?
Well, so there's this number, and then later on there's a courtroom scene where he sings a song called Like Animals, which is it's full of like puns, wordplay, but the gist of it is that humans have a concept of what it means to be humane that we don't actually adhere to. Like, that's an ideal that's not real, and animals have a greater degree of altruism, at least as framed in the song, than humans often show. And it's like, we could learn from them, but instead we just dominate them and exploit them, and isn't that barbaric? Like, we think we're civilized, but we're the real barbarians. We're the real primitive savages. And I think that's done well. I think that's probably the most defensively good part of the movie.
But that concept, like, so you say this is the one that most makes you think of it. So, like, now that you have been introduced with that concept, does that put in you a kernel of thinking, well, like, hold on, maybe this is actually true? Or is it just like, oh, that's a provocative idea, and then you just kind of move on from it?
It's more the second one.
Okay.
So the way that I've always thought of it is just like, we are the species in a position of power. And I don't really feel the need or the benefit of giving that up. I would prefer to be the dominant species than anything else. So that's my view. And I mean, I think a lot of the American economy still hinges on meat. I think it was a part of how it came to be as economically successful as it is. I mean, like, a big part of the Wild West is cattle. It's beef production.
I mean, that's not what it is anymore. Now it's like industrial or factory farms. But certainly food and animals being a part of food is absolutely has been a driver of economy historically, and continues to be so, but like less efficiently. I think if you kind of study it, like the things that you're saying, you can make plants and you can eat plants the same way that you can animals, and like you could use pretty much the same space that you're using for animals today.
Well, I can still eat plants too. I can do both. But yes, I think the courtroom scene especially voices the idea effectively, and just that he's kind of against the world in this view that he has. there is a female character who just the whole time really feels like kind of an afterthought. She is not in the books. She's like Gopher and Winnie the Pooh. They just decided to add her.
This was a Bercusi introduction.
And so she's like irritated with Dr. Dolittle at first, but he like intrigues her inexplicably. She's like drawn to him because he puts her off so much. And I don't know. He's got maybe this weird charisma. I don't really understand it. It feels wrong to me because Matthew is shown to be like actively interested in her and like making gestures, whereas Rex Harrison is just like this asexual weirdo.
Yeah, I was really surprised by this because I thought that it was going to go down the route because she's a young woman, he's a young man, Matthew. They're going to end up together. He's like the normal one, and he'll like introduce this world of the Doctor to her, but like she won't fall in love with the Doctor. But then there's even like they share a kiss, and he like sings about it. I was like, okay, so this is kicking off that arc. And then that arc is pretty much discarded from then on.
Yeah, it's strange. I've always thought it was strange since I was 8 years old. It's like, well, wait a minute. Matthew, like the way that 8-year-old me would have said it is that, oh, well, Matthew he's the more deserving one. He's the more interested and like emotional one. But, you know, on the crassly economic hand, Dr. Dolittle is a doctor and Matthew is a drunk scrap meat salesman.
Yes, that's a very good point.
So for this noble woman, maybe the Doctor is a better match. Dr. Dolittle's aspiration, what he wants to do, is to sail to the far corners of the globe and find the great pink sea snail. And he never does a good job of putting into words why he wants this.
What's so great about the goddamn pink sea snail? Stop talking about it. Why are you shaping your life around going to find the pink sea snail?
Yeah, I need more stakes. I need to better understand what the snail offers to the world.
Taking one step back here on like the Doctor's relationship with other people, including what's the woman's name? Emma. So one thing I didn't get, they all seem baffled by the concept of an animal doctor. He's like, oh, I'm going to care, but I'm going to care for an animal instead of a person. They're like, what sort of nonsense is this? And there's like a whole scene where like he's trying to explain to them. I was like, did animal doctors just not exist in the 1840s? Like, did veterinarians, was that not something that anyone was aware of? Like, what if to your point, people have been raising cattle and had farms. If your cattle got sick, did you just be like, oh, well, I guess my cattle's sick? Or was there animal doctors back in the 1800s? This was really throwing me for a loop here.
Yeah, I feel like there must have been. I mean, when you're, involved in animal husbandry, you want your animals to be healthy, so it is confusing.
Particularly when it was more common for people to own, or like for people in the neighborhood to own farm animals.
That's right. There's also, like, Deus Ex Machinas in this movie. Things just kind of happen that push things forward, that aren't really motivated by things that the characters do. It's just things that happen to them. A big one is one day Dr. Dolittle comes home and there's this huge crate on his lawn, like this bamboo shipping container that has a push-me-pull-you in it. And a push-me-pull-you, what is it, Dan?
Did you ever see the Nickelodeon cartoon Cat Dog, where there's a cat head on one side and a dog head on the other side? It's a llama. It's a two-headed llama with no butt. So where does the poop go? I don't know. But
great question.
It's a creature that has heads on both sides. It also made me think of the Simpson gag where they invent some machine. I think it's a Treehouse of Horror, but I could be wrong, where if you go through it with like another animal at the same time, you like swap properties with them. So it
Right,
ends up
it's the Fly.
exactly. I was going to say it ends up being basically a spoof of The Fly, but at one point he has the dog and the cat go through it together, and one comes out that's the dog head on one side, the cat head on the other side, and the other comes out and it's the cat butt on one side and the dog butt on the other side. And Bart says that one could be Lisa's. So I always thought that was funny.
The shipping container with the push me pull you comes from Dr. Dolittle's Native American friend Long Arrow, which I guess is actually taken from the book. I think if you were going to pick a Native American name for yourself, Long Arrow is a pretty good one.
Large wiener.
Like, it's not enough to have this fantastic two-headed llama. Dr. Dolittle immediately says, well, perfect. I can use this freak to make myself money so that I can go find the great pink sea snail. It's like, you can't be happy with just one phantasmagorical animal that's just landed in his lap.
Right, I'm going to exploit this so that I can go find the goddamn pink sea snail.
But what's great about this is that he's going to take the push me pull you to the circus and exhibit it, and that's how he's going to make his traveling money. And so we get this little act where they show up at the circus and impress the ringmaster, who is played by Richard Attenborough, David Attenborough's brother, and he's Hammond from Jurassic Park.
I did not place this. This one surprised me.
Yeah, so quite a bit younger, obviously, like 25 years younger. But so in Jurassic Park, there's this scene where he's like with Ellie in the cafeteria, and he's telling her about how in his past, Hammond ran a flea circus. Like, that was his previous business venture. And I like to imagine that he is the same character.
Oh,
like,
nice.
This is what he used to do, and then later he ran Jurassic Park.
So it's like James Bond and The Rock, which the reference there is the Michael Bay movie The Rock has Sean Connery playing a former spy who has been imprisoned and is now freed. I think that's what it is, to help out with this mission. And the fan speculation was always that it was James Bond many years later.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And so in this circus number, it's like a montage. Circus scenes as time is passing, and Dolittle becomes like co-owner of this circus. And so the guy's name is Blossom. It starts out as Blossom's Mammoth Circus. And by the end, there are all these DB logos everywhere for Dolittle and Blossom. So Dolittle even took first billing.
Kind of messed up.
Yeah, but I guess, if all the income's coming from push me pull you merchandise, it's like that's the kind of thing that you can do. A hostile takeover.
So I want to talk a little bit about the experience of watching this movie. Sometimes I like to interrupt Brian's plot descriptions by like providing something a little more subjective here. And so here's my impression of Dr. Dolittle at this point. We're not quite yet at the halfway point of the movie. And I am like, when is the movie going to start? It constantly feels like we're building up to something happening that hasn't happened yet. And I paused and I thought about it. And I was like, I guess what it's doing is it's kind of doing the Mary Poppins thing, where it's like shaggy episodes where like they're so whimsical and fun that like you don't really feel like nothing is happening because you're on this magical journey with these crazy characters. And so like it ends up feeling like an adventure, even if not much is quote unquote happening. But because, in my opinion, this doesn't get quite far enough on that like immersive magic and whimsy, the experience is like not this episodic, shaggy little story, but like a lot of wheel spinning, waiting for a thing to happen. It's not quite fireworks factory because he is talking to animals as he goes. That's the fireworks in the fireworks factory metaphor, is talking to animals, and they're the animals doing funny stuff. That's happening all along. But like, he talks about the pink snail, but like you said, we don't know why or what, or like, what's the quest here? It's just, we need to get the pink snail. And I kept waiting for it to happen. And it didn't happen for like 2/3 of the movie.
All of that is right. It just doesn't obey standard narrative rules at all. There's like not a proper arc. There's not a proper progression. And yeah, the goal is not the clearest. Like it's we're told and not shown. We don't feel the feelings behind the snail drive. But at the circus, everything's going fine until Dolittle starts talking to one of the seals at the circus. And it's a lady seal, and she pines for her seal husband, who is still at large in the wild somewhere. And so one might wonder, okay, Dr. Dolittle has like made this spiel that he's against the exploitation of animals. And now suddenly here he is running a circus, and how does that jive? And Emma even calls him out on it. And he doesn't really have a good answer for it. But then pretty soon the next thing is he's helping this animal escape. So maybe it was poking him. Something was grating in his conscience. But this seal, Sophie the seal, he takes her out to like, I don't know very well the English geography, but I'm going to call it the Cliffs of Dover. Some seaside cliff that just drops precipitously down to the sea. It's not white, so it's probably not really the Cliffs of Dover, but somewhere where you get to the edge of the land and then far below is water. And he throws the seal off. But he snuck it out of the circus wearing women's clothing. And before he throws the seal off the cliff, he sings a love ballad to the seal.
This is the real argument for not having Emma be a love interest here. Because he already has a love interest. It's the seal. This is the best scene in the movie, I think, Ryan.
He's 10 times more amorous singing to this seal than anything else that happens in the movie. It's like we stop and they gaze at each other lovingly.
When I look into your eyes, I see the sea, or something like that. It's like, dude. Lampshading that Timothy Treadwell and my octopus teacher guy also in love with the subjects that they obsess over in their documentaries.
Right. So he tosses, after this song, the seal into the sea and like, claps his hands. Well, that's all done. And turns around to be immediately arrested because to outside observers, he just hurled a woman off a cliff.
Yeah. So I didn't quite get it. That's another thing about this movie is sometimes it lurches. And if you're like not ready, you're like, wait, why is this different thing happening now? So yeah, he's like, he steals the seal and dresses her up. So that's already like a funny meta layer because she's dressed up, because the seal is dressed up like a woman, adding this layer of like him falling in love with the seal. And then, yeah, they mistake it that he just straight up murdered someone. By the way, I'm not sure a seal would have survived this, being tossed off a cliff, even if it's into the water.
Gotta call the Mythbusters. Now it's like a courtroom drama. That's another thing, is it's like the genre kind of shifts of the story several times. And now he's on trial first for murder, but his defense is, no, it was a seal, it wasn't a woman, and I just stole some clothes that I put on her. And like they find the woman that he stole the clothes from, and they're like, okay, well, I guess you didn't kill a woman, at least not that woman. But then the next thing is they're gonna put him in an asylum because he's talking to animals, even though he like calls them to the stand and is able to understand like the less than stellar things that the animals say about their owners.
So I'm trying to think, does every Dr. Dolittle have a you need to prove you can actually talk to animals scene? I think most of them do. I'm not sure every single one does.
Yeah, for sure. This one in 1998 have that. I feel like 2020, he's more established. It's like the world knows Dr. Dolittle's deal.
He's already kind of established in this one, but we do have the flashback origin story, I guess. So we do see that.
But here's where I'll say I like the way that talking to animals is depicted most in the 60s one. Because it's like you always hear him making the animal noises, and then the animals make noises back. That's it. He's like an interpreter for the animals. That's how it would be to people who don't have the ability to speak to animals.
It's a great point. It's very different in the other movies. All of them except this one have voiceover when the animal talks to represent what the Doolittle hears.
So it's a bunch of celebrity voice actors.
Exactly. And this introduces other logical problems, I think, that maybe we could talk a little bit about. But you're right that, like, to the extent that this concept is realistic at all, this one, like, sets up a reality that kind of makes sense. Like, and you're seeing it the way that an outsider would see it as well. Like, gestures and noises exactly match what you, as a person in that room, would hear. Whereas, like, in the 1998 one, if you were standing in that room with Eddie Murphy, you wouldn't hear the dog talking in Norm Macdonald's voice, you know? You would just hear a dog barking or maybe whimpering, or I don't know. I guess the idea is that the dog's making some noise that other people are hearing, but it's not entirely clear.
Right. And I would say it leaves it a little bit ambiguous of how advanced are the thoughts of the animals. It's like, you know, you can talk to them and they can tell you things that they see and hear, but it's not like long diatribes that he's getting out of these animals.
Right, because if like an animal is doing wordplay or like speaking in an accent or something like that, like you're like, okay, so is this just a person's brain in a mouse? Is that why we're hearing this? And they're like using idiom
and referencing movies and
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
You didn't watch the second one. You only watched the first one, right? Of the Eddie Murphy series?
That's correct.
There's a whole thing where there's kind of like Zootopia. There's a rodent godfather in Dr. Dolittle 2. That's one that strains plausibility.
You had me up to this point. But Doolittle's friends, Matthew and Tommy, they help him get out of this holding cell where he's about to be taken to the asylum. And like his parrot like misleads the horse cops, and they bust him out, and he's got enough money from the circus that they're able to get a ship, like a piratey sailing ship, and they take to sea. It's like Arrested Development. Take to the sea! Because maritime law is its whole own system. So he takes off in his boat, and again, it's almost like a genre shift. It's like now it's a journeying on a boat movie, and they're now focused, I guess, on going after the snail. We have what we need to find the snail. We got this boat, we got this capital, and here we go.
One more thing about the experience of watching this movie. So right before it goes to starting the sea voyage, there's an intermission. And I had kind of forgotten that when reading about the production that there was like a whole sea component. And I actually thought that the 2.5 hours had ended. I was like, okay, we're about to hit the credits. And then it says intermission. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This can't be. I thought the whole point was going to be we're not going to do this mission. We're going to build up to it, and then we're not going to ever see the pink snail or whatever it is. But now we're actually going to go on this quest. Okay. And we're at intermission when it felt like the movie was over.
Man, that sounds like wishful thinking. But that would be bold, you know, if it was like The Sopranos or something. It cuts to black and we never see the snail.
Or it could be like he goes off into the distance, like, I'm going to find the pink snail. Like sequel bait or something like that. I don't know.
Like Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings. We ran out of money, but if we get more, you'll see what happens next. Dr. Dolittle on his boat has like a bunch of flowers, and he's talking about my azaleas. And so, I don't know. I also thought they kind of like played up that he was maybe a little like gay or something. It just the whole thing with Emma seems wrong. Doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem natural to me. It doesn't seem like that's the way this Doctor swings.
I also don't buy that Emma would be drawn to him. I mean, I kind of get that different people are into different things, and like, oh, maybe like a suave older guy. That's something that young women have always been attracted to. But like, he's not charming. He's like, that's his whole thing. He doesn't like interacting with people and charming them. So like, it's not like he's a suave older guy. He's like a weird loner, talks to his pet cow guy. It's like, okay.
Yeah, he's a weird curmudgeon loner. And I think that's the key between these three Ricussi Newley movies.
Okay.
Is you got to have a weird misanthrope loner. Because you got Dr. Dolittle, you got Scrooge, you got Willy Wonka, who live like alone in their isolated worlds. And at least Dolittle and Wonka have like, you know, they've got something to them that's like positive and fantastical, but they like can't connect with normal people. And Scrooge like doesn't even have that. He's just like the cold, burned out end of a life.
Well, he sort of does. He's got kind of like his business, and ends up obviously having the encounter with the ghost. So like this thing he discovers. But you're right, he doesn't have like an intrinsic thing the way that Willy Wonka do. But I'm wondering now if like it's Bercusi's dark mirror. Like this is like his way of reckoning with his own curmudgeon nature.
Yeah, it's like Rodriguez in the Spy Kids movies.
Oh yeah.
It's like keep having that weird artist guy who's trapped in his own creative realm.
Great point.
But with all this like impulse behind finding the snail, Dr. Dolittle literally opens an atlas and he's like, just point somewhere on the map of the world and we'll go there. And it's like, this doesn't feel purposeful.
So this is where I really understood that they were doing like the whimsical shaggy adventure, silly, oh, things just happen because they happen because we're in a silly story. But it does not land. It's like, it is very, you're like, what the hell are you talking about? Point at a map and we'll go there, and you think the sea snail is going to be there? The magical pink snail? I don't even know what this goddamn thing is. It's going to be wherever you point on the map.
And then where the dart lands on the map is this island that drifts around, which is a cool idea. I like that. But why would they even put it on a printed map then? It's like, it's pointless. It's stupid to even draw that on there.
I didn't think about that. You're right.
I mean, if anything, put like a big circle and say, this is the range in which it has been observed.
The radius, yeah. Or maybe they didn't know it was moving when they put it on the map.
I'll accept that. But of course, through the necessities of plot, they find this island, and there's a big storm first that wrecks the boat. They make it to this little island, and they run into the natives on the island. And it's always like rapidly back and forth whether these natives are friendly or not. Because it's like things keep happening that will either piss the natives off or endear them. So from moment to moment, we're not sure where Dr. Dolittle stands with these folks. But their leader is this guy. The actor's name is Jeffrey Holder. And he has a great voice. Really, really deep voice. And he's like the king of this tribe. And this is basically the Bumpo guy, except re-envisioned to be like beyond reproach. Just like, he's like an intellectual, like a genius guy. So, I don't know. It's clear that they, you know, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too with the way they're depicting these potentially problematic characters.
But it is a pretty good gag. I actually laughed at it, where he like goes up to him and he talks to him in kind of like a slow way, like, oh, you're the native who doesn't understand. And then it like immediately flips. Isn't his name like Billy Shakespeare the 10th or something like that?
Yeah, William Shakespeare, because this island drifts around the world, it like has encountered ships from everywhere, and so they can like speak every language, and they are very familiar with books.
Right. So the reveal of that actually made me laugh. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. And, like, the problem that is plaguing this island is it's drifted too far north, and so it's colder than the people and the animals are used to. And so what Dr. Dolittle does to treat the animals is he recruits a whale to push the island back south again. And I always liked that. Anytime he goes under the water, because there's like puppets down there, there's an octopus puppet that he talks to and clam puppets, and then the best one that I thought they did build to this well is this whale puppet. And he's got to like call it, and it comes from across the sea and then pushes the island. And then the island rejoins the continent like perfectly.
Right.
So that you can see there were things that were split in half by the rift, that like trees, model trees that come together perfectly when the island rejoins.
It's like a Pangea thing. Like,
yeah,
the continents fit together, and now a whale has just kind of pushed it together.
So that's another one of my favorite parts. And so now Dolittle is like celebrated by the inhabitants of the island. Everything's cool. And the snail just shows up. Now the snail is there. So the movie can be over. But before that, Dr. Dolittle like shoos his friends away. He's like, okay, we did it. Go home. And this always felt really abrupt to me. You know, this too is kind of like the end of Willy Wonka, where Willy Wonka is suddenly like cold, and he says, nobody gets the chocolate, everybody leave. And then, you know, he kind of does a face turn where he says, actually, Charlie, you do get the factory. But there's like that moment of, okay, everything's done, go away.
I'm pretty checked out at this point. I don't give a goddamn about this Dr. Dolittle anymore. But no. So tell me, what are your thoughts on the pink snail itself?
Okay, so I like this prop. I like how absurd it is. Apparently in the book, it's the great glass sea snail.
Okay.
Probably it would have been more expensive to do that. I don't know. Something that was see-through. I can't really say. But they made the choice to make it pink. I feel like it was probably like Jaws, where it was supposed to do more than it was actually able to do. Like they probably pushed it out into the lake, and then it like got waterlogged and couldn't do very much.
I remember the book talking a lot about the pink snail, but I just don't remember what it was. And it could be right, what you're talking about.
What I read was that the inhabitants of the island, the real inhabitants, had just been dealing with like some kind of gastrointestinal disease that is brought on by water snails.
Yeah, they were like vandalizing it.
They resented this giant water snail. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. I mean, I like the idea that what's going to end it is you meet up with some big fantastic animal. That seems right. Like he's the animal guy. He knows all the animals, and sometimes he goes far afield and meets unusual animals. That makes sense.
There's like one scene that, if I'm not mistaken, okay, did I misinterpret it, or was it actually like inside the snail itself?
Yes. So the chambered shell of the snail is apparently like airtight, and you can go in there and ride the snail like a submarine. Apparently that's in the books too. I did read little summaries of the first 4 books.
Okay.
So this is in there. You can ride in the snail.
Great point. Did you actually read? You didn't read the books?
Did not read the books, just summaries.
So if we had like one more day, I might have tried to like really quickly read through the first book, or like the first half of the first book or something, to just get a sense of the tone. Because as we'll talk about, every Doctor Dolittle movie has a different tone. And it's like, what is the thing, that the seed that this is building upon? And I think this movie is the closest, is my sense, in that both in the depiction of Dr. Dolittle and just like a sort of whimsical flavor. Yeah. Lightly comic flavor.
That's my feeling too. The very final beat of the 60s one. So the friends leave. They ride in this submarine snail. And Dr. Dolittle stays on the island. I don't exactly know why. I mean, maybe it's because he was a criminal back in England. Maybe he's like hiding out.
I think he says that, yeah.
Because then, like, the seal washes up on the beach and tells him that the animals of England have gone on strike without him there. And so the powers that be, like the English law enforcement, has decided to welcome Dolittle back into the fold so that animals will act normal again. Like, you know, the whole food system, the whole agriculture and transport has crashed because animals aren't acting the way that is expected, which is kind of an interesting idea. We don't see any of that. We're just told that.
So my anecdote on this last plot point about the strike is that one thing I learned from the book is Bercusi, he either like didn't read the books or like he skimmed them or he read a couple of them, but he actually based his script off of like not just notes and outlines on the story, but like previous drafts of the scripts from people who had been fired. And he's like, all right, I'm going to kind of use some of those ideas, assuming that everything that was in the old script was connected to the books. And he liked the idea of the animals going on strike. And so he included that at the end of the script. It doesn't even really have that much bearing. I guess it's like you said, the way that he gets quote unquote out of jail. But when the movie released, one of the screenwriters who had been fired sued Fox because like, hey, that was my idea. And so they went back and sure enough, literally Bercusi read that other script, took that idea and put it in this script. And so they had to pay, that was like even more expenses on top of this ever growing boondoggle that they had to pay out some percentage. I don't know if it was a percentage of the revenue or what, but they had to pay out to the original screenwriter that they had fired.
Yeah, it just never ends. I'm imagining people with their heads in their hands. Oh my God, got to spend more money. And so the way Dr. Dolittle is going to go home is he summons the great lunar moth and it takes him through space, which I love this too. This is great. This is so good. And it's just like the final 30 seconds of the movie is suddenly he's on a giant moth in space with his top hat on.
It is a good final image. It had me thinking of Brian. Have you ever actually seen the movie Grease?
Yes.
Okay, so it's like a cheesy teen musical about kids in the 50s. Do you remember what the last shot of that movie is?
Does the car take off?
The car flies in the sky. He's tinkering with his car this whole time, and then at the end it takes off into the sky.
Yeah, it's like Repo Man.
Yeah, so I was thinking of that because it's maybe like less comparatively absurd than the car in Grease suddenly taking off when it's otherwise been completely based in reality. Here we at least have, you know, all the magic of the Doctor Dolittle. So there's some precedent for it, but it is still pretty much just about as far out of left field when he's like, I'm going to take the lunar moth to the moon, of course. What else would I do?
I also like it. It's like a secret boss in a Final Fantasy game or something. Like we've been told to expect the pink sea snail, and then we see it and we think, all right, this is the big prop that they built that they were going to wheel out at the end, and that's the end. But then boom, you got that like 1 second bit of the 1-2 punch. Actually, we have this whole other giant animal that we built, and here's that.
That is kind of cool, yeah.
And that's Dr. Dolittle 67. Thank you for letting me get into the weeds. We did it. Now let's have some quick discussion of other Dolittles.
Sure. So the earliest Dolittle that I watched is actually remember when we discussed Adventures of Prince Ahmed with the silhouette animation? So the woman who animated that, it's like Lottie, what's her last name? Reiniger? Yes, Lottie Reiniger. She also did a short adaptation in the same style of Dr. Dolittle. And it's like 3 chapters. And I think each one is a book. And it's pretty nifty. Like it doesn't have the same narrative heft as the other ones because it's silent. But if you kind of already know the Doctor Dolittle story, it's kind of cool to see it in silhouette animation style. So that one is public domain, so you can find it on YouTube. So I recommend going to check that one out at some point. Just kind of a nifty throwaway. But I guess the main ones are the Eddie Murphy 1998 and then the 2020 Robert Downey Jr. So which one do you want to start with, Brian? I guess the Eddie Murphy one?
Yeah, let's go Eddie Murphy. So a couple things different in the Eddie Murphy one. One is it's got a contemporary setting. Mm-hmm. You know, it's happening when it is set, when the movie came out. And also he is a family man, which is very much not what the other Doctors Dolittle are. I was telling Dan as I was watching this one, it's like they crashed Ghost Dad into Doctor Dolittle.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with that, because there's also like you were saying, a plot thread about a business merger that the dad has to oversee, which is exactly what it was in Ghost Dad too, as he faces this supernatural crisis.
Right. It's like it suddenly snuck up on him, even though they established that he had the ability to talk to animals as a child, but then was like encouraged to repress it by his father, and to the point that he like forgot that he had it. And then at a moment of stress in like midlife crisis time, it emerges and inconveniences him that he's suddenly hearing all the animals talk.
Yeah, and I actually like this, I gotta say. This, like, I know that we were talking about how the depiction of it feels less realistic than the one in the 67, but if you're gonna have humans talking with animals, I'm drawn to the idea that it's like this innate gift, like this innate trait in you. And I also like this idea that, you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's like children's movie fodder, but like this abnormality that he's discouraged from pursuing. And like, he's like, no, that's not what like, you need to go down a more conventional path rather than this. And I found it pretty interesting. And then when it kind of comes back, it's like, you're kind of rooting for him at this point. Like you're encouraging him, like, yeah, man, talk to the animals, care for the animals, in a way that, like, I don't know, I was just kind of aloof with the Rex Harrison.
Like we talked about George of the Jungle, this is a movie that came out at a moment in time where CGI was not the end-all be-all. It wasn't like the only game in town. So we still have like a lot of puppetry used for these animals.
Yeah, and it's done by the Jim Henson Creature Shop. And I thought it was really good effects. Like, this to me is the right middle ground. It reminded me a lot of Babe. I think Babe does it maybe a little bit better, and it's a little more central in Babe. And then the second Babe is even more impressive on that front. But honestly, like, there were times when I watched it and I didn't know how they got it to work. Like, was it they had some sort of post-processing CGI on the mouth, or was it like a animatronic from the Jim Henson shop, or how did they get it to work? And it's pretty impressive, I'd say.
Yeah, I think there must have been some mix.
Yeah, I think so.
At one point, there's like a real monkey that kind of stands out because you could just tell, oh, that's a real thing. But then other times, yeah, it's like, was it 100% a puppet? Or did they have some kind of animal and then they did digital, like, Crash Cargo lips on the animal? And I wasn't really sure. So overall, fairly seamless, pretty well done. Also, they kind of lampshade it because there's a scene where characters are talking about the TV show Mr. Ed and how did they make the animal talk. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. This is like from that era. So I think we talked about this with George of the Jungle too. In the 90s, there was a lot of properties that they brought back, like old stuff from the 60s, 70s. And
yeah, it's like do the Beverly Hillbillies movie, do the Brady Bunch movie, do Addams Family.
Yeah, George of the Jungle, The Nutty Professor, Flubber. There's a whole bunch of them that were these, in general, live action comedies. I'm sure there are ones that were like they did the equivalent for remakes for grown-up movies too, but there was like kind of a wave of these that were all in this time period when CGI wasn't good enough that you could just say, oh, we're just going to make it a DreamWorks animated movie, which is what would happen today. Let's pawn it off to Illumination. They'll make the Mario movie. But you still had some CGI, so you could get like pretty cool looking and not at like a crazy budget in production like the 1967 Dolittle required. Or like, I don't know, I feel like Disney had a whole wave of these like in the 60s and 70s. The Little People one too, Brian.
Yeah, Darby O'Gill.
Where they're kind of like mid-budget family comedy movies with a lot of practical effects, you know?
There are also some nods to the original story, possibly to the original movie. I mean, it's got Talk to the Animals before the credits roll. They did work that in. But there's a couple other little things. Like there's a scene where he puts glasses on a horse. There's also the circus plotline. That he does end up at a circus, and there's actually like logos around that say Blossom's Mammoth Circus.
Wait, when does he go to a circus again?
So there's a tiger that he treats a tiger that has migraines.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He takes the tiger back to the circus that it's from, and it's Blossom's Mammoth Circus. So it's the same, ostensibly, you know, it comes from the same place.
Right. And so another thing about this one is he's a human doctor, but because he can now talk to animals, he's like feeling sympathy for the animals because they're like, oh, you need to come, doctor, you need to come help me with this thing. And then it just kind of escalates where like rumor spreads that there's this guy who can talk to animals in the animal world. So they come and seek him out, and it throws off his life because he's just trying to be like a normal dad running a successful doctor clinic, I guess, like I don't know, clinic, I guess you'd call it.
His practice.
And he's trying to sell that. So that's like the movie starts with he's basically at the point where someone's going to buy it, and he's going to be kind of letting a corporate takeover of his practice occur, and he'll make a lot of money off of it, but now it'll be in corporate hands and won't be quite so personal. And Oliver Platt plays, I think he's not one of the corporate guys. I think he's another doctor. There's like these two doctors. One of them is like, they're the angel and devil on his shoulder.
Yeah, one is very in favor of the merger and is a corporate shill. And then the other one, who is Toby from the West Wing, has like a heart.
Right.
And says this is not what we should do.
Right.
The cast is enormous. There's just so many people in this movie.
Well, yeah, and then you have the voice cast too, because there's a whole bunch of animals that appear, and you just go down and there's so many people who voice animals in this. So Norm Macdonald, R.I.P., voices the dog Lucky, who is the one who kind of kicks off his reawakening of being connected to animals in all 5 of them. So he actually appears in the entire series. He and the younger daughter are the only ones that appear in all 5. So there's 2 daughters. The older one is played by, I think her name is Raven Simone.
Yeah, from That's So Raven.
Yeah.
She was also the cousin Oliver of The Cosby Show. She showed up at the very end once the children weren't cute anymore. She was the young, cute kid they brought in.
Gotcha. And then there's the younger daughter, too. And the younger daughter is like just a little kid in this one. We can talk about the sequels in a minute, but she ends up becoming the stars for episodes 3, 4, and 5. But yeah, one other thing I want to say about this is like, an Eddie Murphy movie from the late 90s. Surely he's just hamming it up to 11, being completely ridiculous. But actually, he's kind of the straight man in here. He's like observing and soaking in the shenanigans around him. So I was actually kind of surprised how much restraint he had.
Well, it's a little bit, at least how I saw it, was the thing with Bill Murray that we've talked about, where he's kind of a jerk, and like that's the punchline a little bit. I mean, it's not quite that. A lot of it is him being put upon, but at least at the start, when he's like tamped it all down and trying to live this button-down life, and he's like a lot of the punchlines in the early part of the movie are him shutting down creativity, shutting down anything abnormal. And it's just like, this guy's a wet blanket.
I think there's something to that, and like that is some of the same humor. But I also think part of that is to build to his awakening as well. At least some of it is.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So I actually like this one more than I expected. I expected it to be horrible, and it's not horrible. I think your mileage will vary depending on how much you have an appetite for kid movie stuff. There's too much butt.
There's a lot of potty humor.
Yeah. And like, oh, this person's got a big butt. Isn't that funny? Big butt person. Ha.
Yeah, there's sniffing butts and talking about butts and looking at butts, and I'm pretty sure people fart.
But I still felt like it was mostly in check. It didn't like ruin the experience for me. So it's certainly there though.
So do you want to Bing Bang Boom Doctor Dolittle sequels? Do they have things you wanted to hit specifically?
I'll rapid fire them. So Doctor Dolittle 2 came out 3 years later, and this was a proper theatrical release. So Doctor Dolittle 1 was the 6th highest grossing movie of 1998. So it was like a big time earner. So of course they were going to make a sequel. And they pulled in pretty much all the original cast for the sequel. And to me, it's like very distinctly more is less. It's like we just need to do, here's more animals who are talking and like another scenario. So in this one, it doesn't entirely make sense, but the gist of it is there's this nature reserve that is about to be turned into like a logging site. So they're going to cut down the forest unless they can get it marked as being inhabited by endangered species. And somehow this ties to, there's a bear that lives there, but the bear needs to have a baby. So he's trying to get 2 bears to fall in love to have a baby. And that makes it sound really strange. Like he's trying to get bears to hook up, but it basically is like a bizarre romantic comedy. They do like make a joke of like, oh, you're a bear pimp. Haha. But only one time. So it kind of feels like it should be weirder than it is. To me, it just kind of didn't quite connect as much. And to me, there's this whole thing where he's fighting with his teenage daughter played by Raven-Symoné. I was like, oh, they're setting her up to be the new Dr. Dolittle. That's what it felt like. And it's got pretty much the same like amount of effects and timbre, I would say, like style of humor. But then, okay, Brian, Dr. Dolittle 3, Dr. Dolittle's not in it. There's no Dr. Dolittle in Dr. Dolittle 3. It's now a teen star, and they've gone from Eddie Murphy family comedy to DCOM. This is just a Disney Channel original movie at this point. Not made by Disney, of course, and released to video. So not actually a DCOM, but like if you were to watch this and be told, hey, this is a DCOM, you would 100% believe that it's a DCOM. The premise of 3 is the younger daughter has inherited the animal talking ability. Oh, yeah. Another thing that happens between 1 and all the other ones is Dr. Dolittle becomes world famous. So he's a celebrity. So they're always dealing with the fact that everyone knows that this is the family of the guy who can talk to animals. And can you talk to animals too? Which is kind of interesting. It's always interesting when movies like actually have to reckon with the supernatural things that happened in their predecessors. You know?
Yeah, the status quo actually changes.
Right.
Something that never happens to Indiana Jones. It's always back to square one.
Right.
It's like they want you to forget.
So the third movie, the premise is she goes to a summer camp, and it's kind of like Ernest Saves the Camp. What's the first Ernest one called?
Ernest Goes to Camp?
Yeah. Where they need to come together to find money to save the camp. In this case, it's a rodeo. It's a rodeo-themed camp. And so they have shenanigans with her talking to the animals in the rodeo. And it's fine. It's cheerful. But it's obviously a step down in production quality. And the animals and their like the effects of them talking and interacting with people is way downplayed. Like 3 actually has probably the least of it out of all of them. 4, the premise is she wants to go to college, but for whatever reason, she gets roped into helping the president. So now she's flying to Washington, D.C. and helping the president because they have a dog. Remember, this was around the time that like both George Bush and Obama famously had pet dogs that like people knew the names of the dog. I don't even remember what they are.
There was Bo Obama, and I'm blanking on the name of George Bush's dog. He had like a Toto dog.
And that one is interesting. It has a twist villain. The Secret Service agent is like poisoning the president. Because the thing is, it's kind of similar in that they're to two where they want to chop down a forest, but the president is negotiating this thing where it's going to be an international treaty to like protect this forest. But the Secret Service agent is getting bribed by the company to poison the president so that he like embarrasses himself in front of the other dignitaries so they don't want to sign the treaty. It's kind of convoluted, but it's bizarre. And each one of these, by the way, the Kyla Pratt. So she's the younger daughter in the first one, and then in 3, 4, and 5, well, in the first and second one, and then in 3, 4, and 5, she's the star. She always has a love interest, like a teen movie love interest in 3, 4, and 5. And then the fifth one, I thought I was going to hate, because it starts out pretty bad. The premise of the fifth one is she's got into college. Now she's going to go to college. But before she's about to leave, she gets really mad because she like gets her orientation pamphlet in the mail. And it says, you're going to be a vet. You have to go to college and then 3 years of vet school. And she's like, I have to go to college for 7 years to become a vet. I don't want to do that. I can just talk to animals. And she storms off. And then she like meets a celebrity who's very clearly Paris Hilton. Like 3 years after anyone cared about Paris Hilton, they have a Paris Hilton stand-in because she has the little Paris Hilton dog and she looks just like Paris Hilton. And she gets taken to Hollywood and cares for celebrity pets and like gets recruited to start this show where she talks to animals. But like there's this guy who's like, oh, they don't really care about animals. They just use them for show. That's no good. And she's like, well, but I'll be rich and famous. And then, of course, she's like, no, I should actually care for animals, even if I have to go to 7 years of college. But I turned a corner on the fifth one because at the end of it, she's like signed the contract and given it back to the guy, but she changes her mind. And so now the guy, like the studio Hollywood executive, is like running away with the contract to get it back to the studio before she can get it to tear it up. And so like it's a chase scene. But now they're like chasing through an old Hollywood studio lot. So like now all of a sudden they're in a space movie. Now all of a sudden they're in a horror movie. Now all of a sudden they're in a Wild West movie and like chasing through that. And so like all of a sudden it has fun with the Hollywood magic, the movie magic at the end of part 5. I still think it's probably the weakest, but they all are like vaguely watchable. Like none of them are outright catastrophes and none of them are like, I don't know, with talking animals, you'd think you would get into like deranged stuff, but it never gets that unhinged. I wanted it to get more unhinged.
It's never George of the Jungle 2 or Son of the Mask.
It never, there's no green sperm in these. I kept wanting it to, but it sadly never does. The closest we get is probably in 2 when he has to try to hook up the 2 bears. But yeah, so because it's all like fine and it's not really worth it, I would say, unless you just feel like hanging out with a person talking to animals more, because that central hook gets you far enough. It's enough of a thing that it makes for a movie. It's almost like a TV show. You could have like a episode every week. Oh, here she has to help the president. Here she has to go to summer camp. Here she has to whatever. Like you could make 50 of those, you know?
Yeah. Literally just as I sat down today, I learned that there was a 1970 cartoon show that ran for a season.
Okay.
So definitely, yeah, it's a springboard that could give you some episodes. And the other one that I did watch, though, is from 2020 called Dolittle, starring Robert Downey Jr. It's one of those January movies.
Dumpuary.
Right, and we talked about not too long ago, tends to be a graveyard for films that you just got to put something out. So what have we got? It's not the blockbuster season anymore. And I was going to go see this on my birthday because I loved the 1967 Doctor Dolittle. And I was like about to go, but I checked reviews and it has like a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. Really, really low. just abysmally bad.
It got obliterated.
Yeah, and I thought, well, movie tickets just cost so much these days. It's like, maybe it's not worth it. I'll wait till it's on streaming or whatever. So I didn't watch it until now. Now I finally watched it. And I don't know. I didn't think it was 15% bad. It wasn't very good. But let's talk a little bit about it.
Sure.
This one seemed like it kind of picked and chose what it took from previous adaptations. Like, it seems to be embracing the idea that it's more like the original books. It's back to this Victorian setting, and like the way that it starts out, you even see him talking to the animals, and he's making the animal sounds again. But pretty soon we zoom in, and it's celebrity voice actors, and a whole lot of them.
Yes, very, very many actors, and like good actors, not just like, here's a famous person you've heard of, but like, who's the guy who was just nominated for Conclave?
Yeah, Ray Fiennes. I mean, it's spelled like Ralph Fiennes, but it's Ray Fiennes. Yeah, he plays a tiger who gets kicked in the nuts. So that was something else that presaged this movie for me. Is Buzzed on Movies did an episode where they savaged it. They said it was really bad. And they singled out the line, "Oh, my berries."
Yeah, that was pretty stupid.
Barry the tiger gets kicked in the testicles.
So I have a couple of insights on this. I read some articles about it today. I read like this really long interview with Robert Downey Jr. and he talked a little bit about Dolittle. So here's the thing. I think he co-produced it and he like helped envision it. And he brought in like this serious director, this guy who had made like Syriana, like R-rated dramas and action movies and stuff. And I think he thought he was making Pirates of the Caribbean. I really do. Because he's basically doing an even more exaggerated Johnny Depp in the Pirates of the Caribbean. And apparently they shot it and it was like not funny. It was like just a straight adventure. And it would tested terribly. And so the distributors in the studio were like, this is not going to play. This is going to bomb. We need to go back to the drawing board on this. We need to make it a family comedy instead of like four quadrant action tentpole.
Yeah, I would totally believe that because it like creeps into the movie. The way that it starts out is very much like a adventure fantasy, like, yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean, or there were some in the wake of Pirates of the Caribbean, like there's a Sorcerer's Apprentice movie, right, and various things where it sets out like some fantastic thing, and then they're going to go on a quest of some kind.
Yeah, and there's like enough extra characters and like little tidbits that you could see that they wanted to franchise it. And he explicitly says, I thought I was kicking off a new franchise in the interview. And yeah, so they did a lot of reshoots to make it funnier. And I think you can tell where they did that.
Yeah, because suddenly it becomes all about these like arcs that the animals have. And often it's just the animals talking to each other, like not even interacting with the people.
Right.
But it definitely had me thinking of Zendaya as Michi. Except in this case, it's Rami Malek is Chi-Chi. Emma Thompson is Polynesia. Octavia Spencer is Dab Dab the Duck.
Do you think that is going to be like when she passes away, the first line of her obituary? Dab Dab the Duck from 2020's Dolittle. I think also there was like a schadenfreude element to this, like people hating on this, because I will admit parts of it are really, really bad, but I think people were just like had their knives out after like reshoots and bad buzz. They're like, oh, we're going to take this one down a notch. Because I'm with you. I did not think it was like the worst movie of the year, like a 0.5 star out of 5 type situation.
Yeah, it kind of felt like something from an earlier decade, like a 90s or a early 2000s blockbuster. So I was thinking Antonio Banderas shows up in this movie, and I was thinking of like the Zorro movies or the Mummy movies.
Well, except, and here's I don't know if you call it the elephant in the room, all the animals are CGI. And it's okay CGI. It's not, I wouldn't call it shitty CGI, but CGI animals, I'm not on board. I'm not there.
I agree, especially if it's an animal that really exists. It's like we have an instinctive knowledge of what real animals look like.
Yeah.
So it looks wrong. It looks off-putting.
And I get it. You know, it's like A, expensive, and B, increasingly, I mean, it's kind of in line with what we were just talking about with like, what dignity do animals deserve? But like, basically forcing them to be in movies when they obviously have no concept of what is going on. What are the ethics of that? But I would say that this does not support the idea that, hey, the future is we're just going to have CGI animals.
I like gorillas. I thought the decision to prominently feature a gorilla I appreciated, but yes, it's a CGI, so it knocks it down a peg.
Right.
And the resolution of this movie, so they've got the Queen Victoria is poisoned, and they have to go find something called the Eden Tree, which has a fruit that is a panacea and will cure the Queen. I think this is a misstep. I don't think Dr. Dolittle should be looking for a plant. He should be looking for some kind of animal. Anyhow, this is what he's doing. Tommy Stubbins is prominent. He's like the character we meet first, and we get a little bit more about how he's going to be the apprentice. And he even has a love interest. It's this girl named... So she's like a lord and a lady. She's a lady, I guess. So she's Lady Rose. But they always say it like Lady Rose. Like
right.
Like Ladybug or Ladybird Johnson. And it's like, why do you always say it that way? I don't know. It sounded strange.
My theory is if they were going to do a sequel, they were going to do a love interest with the Queen and Dolittle. Because Dolittle has...
she's very young.
And this whole thing is that Dolittle is driven kind of mad because he fell in love with a woman who I was sure was going to appear and not have actually died.
Yeah, me too.
But that she died on some... She sailed off and died in an adventure in an unspecified way.
Really strange because they say like, oh, they went everywhere together, but then she went off alone and she died. I was like, well, why was she alone? I was like, how did that happen? I thought for sure it was going to be like, what was that one we went to the theater together for? How to Train Your Dragon 2, where the mom has like gone native and lives with the dragons or whatever.
Maybe that's what the sequel would have been.
Also, her name is Lily. But then we meet her dad, and it's like this, you know, this vaguely Spanish, but also like Oriental, like king of this fantastic island. I don't think her name would be Lily. Like, I think she would have some more exotic name. Especially like the little bit that we hear her, she does have like a Spanish accent. Who can say? I feel like I diverted you. You were about to make a point.
No. I mean, I agree with all that. And I think... I just think... I wish they would have left the movie as an adventure. Because then it would have been like it's more distinct. And now it's just like a worse version. The worst gag is like the gag in the climax. It's just so bad. It's like there's this dragon. I think they kind of explain it away. It's actually a lizard or something. But like there's this dragon who's in unbearable pain. But it turns out she's farting a lot. Okay, first of all, great. And second, there's like literal bagpipes stuck up her butt. And that's like the punchline is they pull out a bagpipe and like this, we get this exaggerated effect of Robert Downey Jr., his face getting blown away by air from dragon fart. And they're like making jokes about it. And I was like, come on, this is what you're going to do in your climax. This is pathetic.
Right. The hinge point is an impacted dragon colon. So rooting around in the butt.
And that's where I kind of got the 15% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I don't know, like, I guess I have a little bit of sympathy for these original, quote unquote original. I guess it's not original because it's based off an old story, but like these blockbusters that are trying to do new adventures, you know, I don't know. It's like, opposite of me wanting to pick on it, I wanted to like it. I wanted it to be good. I like to like things. To quote a review. Oh, did you read the review by Hunter Allen, our friend from the pod, about Doctor Dolittle?
The 2021?
No, the 1967.
Okay. No, I didn't.
He likes it. He gave it a 7 out of 10. And he said, I like to like things, and I like this. I was like, that's a good spirit to have towards stuff. But he basically defends it on the grounds that what I said didn't work is its point and more or less works. That it's like just this sort of shaggy bit of whimsy. So,
yeah. Yeah, I would not have regretted it, I think, if I went and saw this.
Uh-huh.
Probably better to have seen it the way that I did, where, you know, pennies or whatever, see it online.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. And that's probably the only reason I found something worthwhile here, is like, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen.
No. I would have watched a sequel, I'll say.
Also, you know, if you were a veterinarian, you probably do have to dig around in the butt sometimes. Like, that's, if you were a doctor, like, it's not sunshine and roses. You got to deal with some gross bodily functions.
For sure. But that doesn't mean I need to see that. But yeah.
I think about in Ed Wood. He says, well, in reality, Lobo would deal with that problem every day. Okay, well, we did it. Multiple Dr. Dolittles. In Dan's case, very many. He watched all 5 of the middle series.
Plus 2020, plus 1967, plus the Lottie Reiniger series of shorts.
What year was that, the Lottie Reiniger?
I want to say... Oh, that's a good question. Let me just Google it real fast. I think it's in the 20s, though.
That's pretty cool. I think that will be the next one that I look up.
1928.
Wow. But now, Dan, is the time. At long last, we say, is it good?
So Is It Good is our signature section where we each give the movies a rating on our 8-point goodness scale, ranging from a 1 out of 8, which is a very not good, to our masterpiece rating, 8 out of 8, toward a good. So, Brian, I guess we'll do 67, 98, 2020, and I can maybe toss it on the rest of them real quick.
Yeah, sounds good.
So starting with 1967, I'll go first. It's kind of unfair on a movie because you've been told it's bad, and look how much Rex Harrison just comes off as conceited, and he was a jackass in real life, and boy, isn't this movie broken. So it's like, you kind of come in, it's not a level playing field. And I tried to come in like clear-headed as I could, like try to wipe away preconceptions I have of it. Cause it's hard when you've read a whole book on how this thing was just a catastrophe. Parts of it entertain me, and I'll just always go to bat for big, colorful productions that are physical and that have that full frame color, saturated color. That it's even like freaking Wicked, man, which is supposed to be the colorful movie of the year. It's just so desaturated and ugly and weird lit and stuff. I don't know, man. This just looks nice, you know? That said, this, like I said, I just kept waiting for the story to happen for like 2/3 of the movie. And I didn't get why it wasn't happening. And it wasn't very fun for me to have it not happen. And I didn't really care about the characters. And the animal effects are okay. I liked having animals around, but it wasn't like knocking my socks off how cool it was. So like, I don't know. I kind of get it, but it also didn't work for me. I'm like on the line of a 3 and a 4 on the 8-point scale. I guess I'll say a 3, and not good, but like, kind of in context, like it's probably more worth watching than other movies I would give a 3, but like, I don't know. It just wasn't a fun catastrophe, I guess, for me. But what about you, Brian?
Well, I've got some preconceived notions too. This is one I have been watching since I was really young. And it's a very Brian Core movie. So it's a musical. It's about this guy who lives a life kind of on the edges of society where he's comporting with fantastic creatures. It's in the Darby O'Gill vein. And I think he's a compelling character. The courtroom scene especially, I think, is defensively pretty good. The trajectory of the movie is broken. Like, it doesn't follow standard narrative rules, and you don't know what's going to happen from moment to moment, and not necessarily in a good way. I'm going to give it a 6, a very good, mainly just because I think I like the music, I like the colors, we got a circus here. Richard Attenborough, I buy that he loves what he's doing. It's like this guy was born to be a ringmaster or to run Jurassic Park. And yeah, I find myself humming the songs. They pop up in some interesting places. There have been commercials that use like Beautiful Things. I've heard the songs just show up, kind of like Greatest Showman. It's like randomly the song will get used somewhere, and it's like, wonder who made that choice. But now, Doctor Dolittle 1998, where are you at?
So I enjoyed this one more. First of all, it's not 2.5 hours. It's like 88 minutes. Chef's kiss. Perfect. All movies should be 88 minutes. Maybe not all movies, but if it's a movie I'm on the fence about seeing, it should be 88 minutes. Because then I'll actually watch it and not be resentful that I'm spending 2.5 hours watching it. I actually liked Eddie Murphy. I came in expecting him to be just off the wall, annoying me. It has butt humor, fart humor, pee humor. It ends with the villain getting pooped on by a bird. At least 2 of the 5 in the 1998 series have a villain getting pooped on by a bird towards the end of the movie. And I wouldn't be surprised if I missed one there. But I actually like the arc. And like, honestly, it sounds silly, but I found like some heart in it too. In like this guy who has kind of suppressed this otherness in him that he's like trying to figure out, how do I make this a part of my identity while still being who I am? There's a weird thing where like he gets sent to a mental institution. That kind of threw me off for like 2 scenes. And it's not clear if he gets like committed or if he like committed himself. But that was almost like a jump scare for me. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, so I mean, he was on his way to an asylum in the 60s one. His psychiatrist in 1998 is Paul Giamatti.
Oh yeah, dude. I was so excited when Paul Giamatti popped up. I was doing the Rick Dalton point.
Yeah, and both 1998 and 2020 had a plot point where there's a character who went to medical school with Dr. Dolittle, and Dr. Dolittle was like the hotshot on campus. But now the tables have turned because the former classmate is like in a position to be an antagonist.
Right. And Doolittle's the crazy weirdo who talks to animals. So like, I don't know, I'm probably right on the edge of a 4 or a 5, but I think the contrast of me having expectations surpassed and like things clicking for me where they didn't click in other movies makes me just feel some affection towards it. So it's probably not actually a good movie, but it's like that era of movies that should still exist. Live action, mid-budget movies that look kind of nice and have a star and have presence and are released theatrically and have a little bit of a budget to them. So I'm just going to give it like a 5, almost out of defiance for its reputation as like kind of a kids movie dud. You do have to accept some kid movie stuff in it, but I had a good time with it.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of the crass humor, but it's kind of par for the course for this era and the stuff that was coming out. I may verge just into 4. I mean, it tells the story concisely and it kind of updates it. It's just a different angle because he's this family man who now things are complicated, and that wasn't part of the other interpretations of the character, because he's very much a loner in the other ones. And so it's more like he's distanced himself from society in those other adaptations, and here he's in the thick of it and now has to grapple with that. And so it's played for humor. It's not bad. So yeah, just into the 4 for me, good-ish.
If I were to just power through 2, 3, 4, and 5, 2 is, I was kind of let down by it. Thought it was going to either be weirder or hold together more, and it doesn't really do either of those. So it's probably like a high 3, maybe a low 4. I guess 3. It's probably not worse than the 67. And then I think if you come into 3, 4, and 5 with just like, hey, this is a TV movie, it's like different expectations. It's a different style of movie. It's like a different genre, really, and different timbre of film. So like, I don't know, it's not apples to apples anymore. I really don't think. Like, it really feels like I'm rating a totally different franchise at this point. But I actually kind of liked 3. I thought it was charming and warm. 4 and 5 are okay, but diminishing returns. I guess I'd give 3 also about a 3 or a 4. 4 probably a lower 3, and then 5 I would give in the realm of like the border of a 2 or a 3. So I guess I didn't give concrete answers, but just to give a sense that I liked them progressively less as you went, and none of them are terrible, and all of them are watchable, and none of them are secret masterpieces.
Good to know. I am not sure if I will go down that road, but we'll see where the weeks ahead take me.
And then I guess we're on to the 2020, simply called Dolittle, starring Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place on this one in terms of, to be honest, I'm also just burnt out on Dolittle. So like, don't trust any of the numbers I'm giving here. I'd probably give this one a low 3 because I kind of like the idea of it, and it's not all time bad movie, but it's also, it really isn't good. Like I spiritually want to defend it, but I can't. When they're pulling bagpipes out of buttholes, like I can't go that far. Parts of it are kind of fun, and like I like the idea of a high adventure Dolittle. And the accent. I want your thoughts on the accent, Brian, because he does an outrageous Welsh accent.
Yeah, it's really crazy.
I like it when people do silly voices. It made me laugh. It does get old.
Yeah, it makes sense that he was like in charge of the movie, because I would if I was in charge, I would say knock it off. It's like, we can't understand what you're saying. Yeah, it was weird. I mean, it was consistent at least.
By the way, the interview that I read about the accent, he was like, I didn't want it to just be me doing like a guy who talks to animals. I wanted it to be a thing, like with how Iron Man, I made it a distinct personality. So I Googled who are the craziest vets. The interview says I Googled who are the craziest vets, and I learned about this Welsh guy. I was like, that's it right there. I'm going to do that. And so that's why he decided to start talking in Welsh accent. He got inspired by this famous vet that he read about online.
Yeah, I liked the angle that he was famous once, and like people kind of know who he is, but that he has isolated himself. So that's very much like Wonka or something, and that when they find him, he's got the Howard Hughes beard, and the scene where he's playing chess with the gorilla, and the chess pieces are mice. I thought that was crazy in a good way. It's like, okay, I'm vibing with this. Basically, I vibed with like the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then it kind of veered off course gradually. I'm also going to give it a 3 out of 8. Where it's not terrible, but it's messy. Like, it seemed like it wanted to be one thing, and then, test audiences steered it a new way, and it's not cohesive or coherent. So, not great. Don't rush out and see it, but I didn't hate it.
I suspect the original cut, the adventure cut, more probably targeting a PG-13, that would have been a 4 for me, I'm guessing. Just like, because anything where it was trying to be funny made the movie worse, in my opinion. So that's just my guess.
Yeah, I feel the same. I did like the end credits too, though, because it had these animated end credits where it was like portraits of the different animals, like painted portraits. And that's one other thing about 1967 Doctor Dolittle I really like is the opening credits.
I was just going to say that.
These animated tableaus of different animals, very influential on the animated credit sequence I just put together.
I really like that intro segment too.
Where it's like snakes squiggle across the screen and then they dissolve into the words.
Right.
Pretty neat. And it's like big blocks of solid colors. And we did a lot.
Too much, one might say. Do less.
Yeah. What do we have to do next time, Dan?
Well, we will do little in comparison to this one, Brian. So my birthday was just a couple days ago as of the recording of this. And so it is time for my birthday episode. And we have not talked about a movie that was extremely important to me as a person. If you go through my top 10 movies of all time, we've probably hit like 4 or 5 of them at this point. This is one we have not hit. This is the film entitled Rudy, about a football player. Now, it would better be watched in autumn. It has a very autumnal feel to it. So in some senses, it's not the right time for it. But birthdays are all about movies that are somehow a vision of the movie world to you. That's what I like to think about when I bring birthday movies. Something that says something about how I view movies and something about me. So we'll talk about what some of the birthday movies have been. And I think more seasonally, I could have picked Dazed and Confused, but I don't know. I'm just feeling Rudy. I think it's more distinctly me too. So we can talk about that.
Cool.
So there you go.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Happy birthday.
Thank you. All righty, Brian. I will see you next week when we discuss the 1993, I think it is, film Rudy.
All righty. Another thing that I was thinking of about the 1967 film, though, with all those real animals, they must have just constantly been picking up poop.
Oh, yeah.
Just always.
I believe it.
Yeah, they must have had like several people devoted just to that.
I want to say there's some anecdotes about that in the book, but I can't remember specifically about them causing constant mess. Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.